I'm Jeanette Andromeda, and today I'm bringing you something a little bit new. It's still bookish, but it's an interview with the author Jason McLeod. And Jason is not just an author of many books, actually. We just talked about 2 in his arsenal. But he's also a paranormal investigator, a lecturer, a spiritualist, an empath, and he's so many things. And he's been doing paranormal research since he was 18 years old. And he actually started his career in this field with Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are famous for all of their research and their help on cases such as Amityville Horror, which some of you may know. So while we Immortal Alexander and I were at Connecticut Horrorfest, we kind of ambush interviewed Jason, and he was kind enough to allow us to do so. So here's the interview we had with him during Connecticut Horrorfest. Enjoy!
So, Jason McLeod here, author of Dark Siege. What do you think of Dark Siege? It's scary, right? Yeah.
So I jumped back behind the table with Jason, and I wanted to talk to him real quick about his book, because it is not fiction. What? But it is about the paranormal, so I did want to talk to you. I'm Jeanette Andromeda.
Jason McLeod.
And we're here to talk about his 2 books.
A Connecticut Family's Nightmare, Volume 1, and Dark Siege, The Nightmare Returns, Volume 2.
Just a real brief, could you tell us about the actual story just a
Sure.
little bit? I know you had mentioned what that picture kind of started in.
Right. It's in the fall of 1993, just prior to Halloween. There was a very large storm coming in, and it was a mother and her 6-year-old daughter passing by Union Cemetery, Easton, Connecticut, in their 1993 black Mercedes station wagon. And the storm was approaching, and the leaves were blowing, and they're very colorful. And the mother joked with the daughter and said, "Be very watchful, Kelly. Maybe we'll see a ghost. We wanted to follow us home, would we?" And this little girl starts to cringe. She said, "That's not funny, That's scary." And but then she's looking for the ghost because the mother planted the idea in her head, and it turns out that Kelly is actually very sensitive. She's clairvoyant, and the mother is an artist, which makes her a natural sensitive. So she actually went and saw this black form materializing in the graveyard right before her eyes as the car is very slowly passing by the cemetery, because the rain really started to come down in buckets. And she starts to cringe in her seat, and then the thing walked right through gravestones, because it was immaterial, through the fence, and then stopped right against the curb as the car was passing by, and literally turned its head and looked at her and scared her out of her bed.
Wait, yeah. Don't look at me.
And then it vanished before her eyes, and then she's turning around slowly to look behind the rear view out of the rear window, and sees it appear again, but closer to the car, even though they were moving away.
Oh no.
Disappear again, come closer, disappear again, come closer, and then right up to the back of the car, and she screamed out of her mind. Of course, then the mother cut the wheel and almost had an accident because of the slick leaves on the pavement. And then, of course, the mother said, "There's no such thing as ghosts, Kelly. Stop being so, dramatic." And she said, "Yes, there are too." But then they thought it was all over until the next morning, when the mother herself started experiencing the ghost in the kitchen.
Oh no.
And she had the house to herself. And then the parents were going away for the weekend to sell their artwork to a bed and breakfast, and they left Kelly with one of their friends. And then the 16-year-old son, Tyler, and his 2 best friends had the house to themselves for the weekend. So as soon as they got off the school bus, they experienced the same black shape in the house and outside on the property, and witnessed other scary things happening inside. So they had the idea to go and buy a Ouija board at the Trumbull Mall, which was the worst mistake they could have made. And they actually had a divine intervention in the mall, in the toy store, before the shelf. And this woman appeared out of nowhere. They didn't see her materialize out of nowhere. When they looked over, she was there, and she said, "Boys, do yourselves a favor and put the game back on the shelf." And they gave up to each other, and they looked back, and she was gone without trace. So there are messengers of the light who are here to try to help us when we're about to turn down a very dangerous road. So anyway, they bought the Ouija board, they brought it home, and they started to initiate communication with who they thought would be this ghost that Kelly brought home from the cemetery. But instead, they ended up talking to very dark entities, and then when they said and spelled out on the board that we're here for Kelly, Tyler, the 16-year-old protective brother, stood up and just shouted at him and challenged him. And that opened the floodgates. And that evening, um, when they were retiring for the evening, they woke up to absolutely horrific things beginning to happen inside the house, and then it just spiraled out of control from there. It's a classic case of demonic infestation, which is what happens when they come in through the use of a Ouija board, and then oppression of the family and their friends, and then possession of one of the family members. And that's why Bishop Long endorses the books and has them as required reading for his demonology class, because it's an accurate case of what happens in these scenarios. The case is resolved at the end of this book, and then I explain what happens through the analysis section. And we told the family, don't think about it, don't dwell upon it, don't fear that anything's going to come back, or any of that. And that's exactly what they did 2 months later, just prior to Christmas.
Yeah.
So that is why I wrote Volume 2, The Nightmare Returns, and it returned with a vengeance on everybody. And it was just horrific.
Wow. I'm incredibly excited about reading these. I'm surprised that I hadn't stumbled upon your work before now, because I do read almost solely horror fiction.
Oh, okay.
And the Demonologist.
And the Demonologist.
Yes.
The Demonologist I have read multiple times already,
Right.
because I'm a fan of the Warrens and their work, and my husband has actually been in their museum and like seen some of their artifacts and stuff, and I
actually bumped my head on the worst thing you could bump your head on in the museum.
Which
in
is-
the entire museum. It was a dragon sculpture. And I'm 6'6" and a
Yeah.
half, so I bumped into it. There's signs, of course. There were signs way back then. If you bump anything, tell me. So I told Dad, I just bumped into it. I said, you bumped into the worst thing you could possibly have in the entire museum. So he white lighted me and all that stuff. But I write in my sequel how I think it's just a very bad idea to have a museum full of these objects, because not only do we have a physical body, we have an energetic body that extends well beyond the reach of our arms. And if we're passing down a narrow hallway or a narrow space in between tables lined with all these objects that are charged and negative, our energy field's interacting with them. So it's just a bad idea anyway. We don't have to physically touch it, but we can actually come in contact with it as well. So I think it's a very bad idea, and it shouldn't happen. It's like having a museum full of razor-sharp medieval swords and axes.
Fun fact: Coast to Coast was how you first got your first big kick with this, right?
Well, actually, I've done a lot of conventions myself and put a face behind the work, and then did a lot of paranormal blog talk radio shows and so forth, a lot of radio shows. And when Bishop James Long plugged my book on October 18th while I was in Salem on Coast to Coast, he just did a fantastic review of my book and really praised it. And that was just massive and skyrocketed me to the #1 position in all 3 listing categories: occultism, supernatural, and ghosts and haunted houses. That was great.
So cool.
And then I actually got on to Coast myself on April 12th, thanks to Bishop Long and Connie, the guest host, Connie Willis. Great people. And that was fantastic. And I got to really talk about it on air for 2 hours, which was just a great way to spread my message,
Yeah. And I mean, I've been just sitting here listening to you for a while, so it's actually kind of cool to I like that you aren't just, here's the story and it's, it's scary and everything, but you're also talking about how to protect yourself from ghosts and bad spirits, and is that part of what's in the book too? You
Absolutely.
talk about that?
I'm a double agent. I go into paranormal conventions and horror shows with a very terrifying real story that happened to a Connecticut family, and explain the scenario. But then in the last 95 pages, which is a detailed chapter by chapter analysis, I explain why these things are happening to the family through quantum physics and the law of attraction and the law of intention and conscious manifestation, why Ouija boards are so dangerous, how to protect yourself properly, how to pray properly, and how to go about investigating, and what to do and what not to do. And so that is really, really interesting. And I go when I do my seminars, I ask people, the very first question I ask is, do you want to be terrified or empowered? And most people say empowered. So they come to the horror shows to hear things, but they're shocked to hear the very bright spiritual message that I have in the end of my both books. Actually, it's just a whole system that I've created to analyze it scientifically and
Yeah, energy fields and heart fields and things like that.
Yep.
So cool. Awesome talking to you.
You too. Thank you.
And subscribe to find more things, and I will put all the links down in the description land for where you can get the digital copies of these books and the website so you can get the real ones if you want.
Right.
Okay,
Darksiege.com.
bye!